This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, so we let training camp go by, we let preseason go by, and now it's time to talk about my final expectations, because the last time I talked about my expectations, it was before camp and all that. And I even mentioned in that video that my expectations could change during camp based on what we do or do not see. So what's going to be discussed in my final expectations video for this Cleveland Browns team? We're going to talk about win total range. We're going to talk about players who I think should have standout seasons. We're going to talk about the offense, the defense, special teams, and we're going to start with special teams. And my expectations for the special teams is very simple. Just don't mess it up. And if you've seen any of my rants about special teams in the past, you know where I'm going with this. If the Browns just have league average special teams play, I'm a happy camper. I'm not really asking for more than that. If you get better than it, cool, awesome. Happy to be there. But if you don't, and you just get league average special teams play, I am not going to be complaining. I could care less as long as they're not one of the worst ones in the league. If they're around league average, we are all right. That's my expectation. I could not have lower expectations for the special teams unit. If I have to talk about special teams again, it's literally only because they're being terrible. Because I'm not going to bring them up if they're being all right. Maybe if they win you a game or something like that, but I'm not going to go out of my way to talk special teams. And I just want it to be something that I don't have to talk about, because honestly, the 9 times out of 10, when you have to talk about special teams, it's not a good conversation. Sometimes it can be a good conversation, right? Sometimes you get the Josh Cribbs, and the Phil Dawsons of the world. But most of the time, you're complaining about punters who can't catch punts or kickers who can't kick, punt returners fumbling punts, stuff like that. I don't want none of that. I just want league average. Let's talk about the defense, man. What do I expect from this defense? First off, Myles Garrett, Za'Darius Smith. There's no reason these two shouldn't eat. There's no reason Myles Garrett should lead the league in double team rate this year. There's no reason for either of these guys to not reach their potential. The Browns have loaded up that interior. They've loaded up that edge position. They have athletic linebackers. It should happen. It really should happen for this defense. And I'm really excited about the potential of Myles Garrett in this defense. I'm really excited about Za'Darius Smith. All that being said, I want double digits from Za'Darius, right? 10 or more sacks. I'll be happy. Myles Garrett, I want a new career high. I want him to get more than 16. Now, look, if he gets 16, that's a pretty good season. A lot of guys don't ever get 16 sacks. A lot of really good edge rushers don't ever get 16 sacks. But I want Myles to get a new career high and be above 16 sacks. Next thing on the defense I want to talk about is that secondary. I need Juan or Grant Thornhill. I need Juan Thornhill or Grant Delpit to become a playmaker. One of those two. The one thing this secondary really needs is a playmaker at that safety position, right? We got some good corners. We just need a safety or a sub linebacker who can step in and make some plays, right? It's one thing for Juan Thornhill to be the safety net. It'd be another thing if Grant can run around inside close to that football and really wreak a lot of havoc in the run game and the screen game and make some plays. Also, why this is important is you have to understand the inherent design weaknesses of the defenses you run. Every defense has them. If you like to run a lot of zone, it's going to be harder for quarterbacks to throw on you, but the really good ones might be able to do it. Or it might be easier to run on you. Or it might be easier to get stuff underneath you, right? If you run a lot of man, there's some consequences to that. The benefit is it's less complicated. It's one-on-one. And if you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. And that's the negative. If you lose, you lose. You win, you win on the outside with the wide receiver, sure. But the most important thing is that man coverage leaves you susceptible to being screened a lot in quarterback scrambles. And when you run a lot of man coverage, you need your safeties to be playmakers, because those are going to be the guys who can erase the inherent flaws in whatever defensive philosophy you're playing, especially if you're playing a man coverage heavy defensive philosophy, right? A lot of times, Grant Delpit or Juan Thornhill, they're going to be asked to make a tackle on a slip screen, on a tight end screen, on a wide receiver screen, that if they don't make that tackle, that screen's going for at least 15 yards. Because that's the negatives of playing man coverage. We're going to love it on third down. We're going to love that we're not playing off the ball and all this stuff that we've been complaining about. But that's the stuff that can get you quarterback scrambles. You got to have somebody in there to be a playmaker, right? To step up, make sure that you can't find a passing lane late. Maybe punish somebody for finding a passing lane. Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, between the two of them, I would love it both. But between the two of them, I need one of them to be a legitimate playmaker this year. Grant has that potential. Juan has that potential. Who takes the throne and does it first? We'll find out. Another thing I want to talk about on the defense is Denzel Ward, because I have serious concerns about his future, given how many concussions he's had. I don't know how much that's going to affect him this year, but that could shorten his career long term. There's also questions about Denzel Ward when it comes to how he's going to bounce back from last year. Now, he's had a really good camp, a really excellent camp. He's coming out of concussion protocol. We'll see how he is when he steps back out there, but Denzel Ward, his future, that's something to keep an eye on. JOK is another guy to keep an eye on, because I just think he's going to be so important. This, for the same reasons I think Juan and Grant are going to be important, right? When you have these inherent flaws with your defense, and again, every defense has those flaws. Every defense has their weaknesses where you can attack them. Boy, do you need explosive linebackers. Boy, do you need good safeties. And JOK, if he can play at the level we've seen him play at times here in Cleveland, man, he can be an eraser of those quarterback scrambles. He can be an eraser of those screens. He can be an integral part to what the Cleveland Browns are going to want to do. And I think JOK is another guy that I have a lot of expectations for, that I'm super excited about, and I want to see be an impact player. Like, at the end of the day, I want to be talking about Denzel Ward being a top level player, a Pro Bowler. I want to talk about Myles Garrett being a first team all-pro defensive player. I want to talk about Zadarius Smith being a Pro Bowler. I want to talk about JOK getting some Pro Bowl buzz, if not in the Pro Bowl himself. I want those things for those five people. If you get those things this year, this defense will be tremendous. Tremendous. Pressure leaders, I need the Browns defense to be pressure leaders, and things that I think the Browns are going to struggle with defensively. I kind of already mentioned this: quarterback screens, quarterback scrambles, screens, and specific run concepts, specifically anything with misdirection, right? Like, that's going to be something that's you're just going to have to deal with, right? Somebody's going to have to make a play every once in a while in order to stop it. Now let's flip gears to the offense. Who are the players that I have expectations for, real expectations for? I want to be talking about being integral parts of this team. Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, David Njoku, Elijah Moore, and one of the two young receivers between Bell or Tillman. Let's start with Deshaun. Look, I think Deshaun's going to look pretty close to what he looked like in 2020, what he looked like in 2019. He's going to be Deshaun Watson. It's pretty, I don't want to say obvious, but the signs are there that he's the same exact dude. Now, he wasn't a perfect quarterback in 2019 or 2020, but he was a really good quarterback. I expect him to be really good. But where I think he can improve to get to elite, to get to the conversation of Josh Allen, of Joe Burrow, of Pat Mahomes, in that echelon, he's got to do something about these sack numbers. And I know some people will bring up, hey, it's just the style of quarterback that he plays. He's going to take some sacks. And I'm fine with taking some sacks. I'm not fine with the amount of sacks that Deshaun Watson has taken in his career. He's had a season where he's taken 63, 43, and I think 48, and he took 20 in 6 games last year. He took 19 in 6 games his rookie year. This has been the downfall of Deshaun Watson. This is why the teams he's been on have not had the success that you would want them to have. Not because he's not a tremendous talent, but because he takes too many sacks. And why would that be important, right? Because I think some of y'all think I'm making too big of a deal out of this. One, why is that important? Getting sacked gets you behind the sticks, kills drives, costs you points at times. You can't take too many of them. And again, I know people use the excuse with them, hey man, he's a playmaker. He's like Pat Mahomes. He's like Joe Burrow. He's like Josh Allen. Well, if you ever looked at those guys' sack numbers, they look nothing like Deshaun Watson's. I think Josh Allen's highest sack total is like 35 in a season. Joe Burrow's similarly at like 30 something in a season. And Pat Mahomes don't even get above 30 sacks in a season in his career. And we're talking about Deshaun Watson, who's never been under 40. Now, I know some people are going to blame it on his offensive lines in Houston. I don't think that was the case. I think a lot of these sacks he took because he was of how he plays quarterback, right? Holding on to the ball way too long, not just a little bit too long, way too long. Not just getting the ball out when he can get the ball out. Sometimes trying to make something happen for too long. You know, these are things that you learn to not do after a while, and I expect that to improve. And some of the footwork stuff too didn't help him when it came to making sure that he can get the protection that he needs. Sacks are a quarterback stat. I fully believe in that, and I believe that Deshaun Watson is his responsibility to get those sack numbers down to something reasonable, right? Under 40. Let's be like every other elite quarterback in the NFL. And if he does that, then the Browns will win at a high level. He will play at an even higher level, and his stats will reflect that. He will be in that conversation with those guys. That's the one thing I think that's keeping him from that conversation is his sack numbers have been atrocious his whole career. And again, he's hit that behind some bad offensive lines. I'm sure they didn't help. Especially that 60 sack season he had in 2019 or 2018. I mean, that's a ridiculous number. But he's also not making it easier for offensive linemen. And I think if he improves that, if he really focuses on that and fixes that on top of being Deshaun Watson and finds a way, that balance of being Deshaun Watson while also not taking that many sacks, ceiling is the roof. Nick Chubb, I have high expectations for Nick Chubb because he's Nick Chubb and he's going to be in a tremendous situation this year. I think people underestimate how important Nick Chubb is still going to be to this offense. He's still going to be one of the most important players. He's still the second best player on this offense. And he's definitely, well, if he's not the best player on the offense, he's most certainly the second most important player on this offense. So yeah, Nick Chubb's going to be super important. I don't really got to explain that. David Njoku is going to be so important, right? The Browns need some red zone threats, right? Tillman, David Njoku, somebody needs to pop up as a red zone threat. I'm betting on David. Deshaun likes finding his tight ends. David is a tight end that fits the athletic profile that you would want as a red zone threat. I expect David to be in that conversation, right? When we're talking about Deshaun, maybe he's a Pro Bowler, maybe he's all pro, like third or second team or something like that, but I expect great things from Deshaun this year. Nick Chubb, all pro. We got to be all pro. That's what Nick Chubb does. David Njoku, again, if he makes the Pro Bowl, we're good. And Elijah Moore, if he's around the Pro Bowl, we're really excited with that, if not in the Pro Bowl. And then David Bell or Cedric Tillman. I need one of those guys to contribute this year. And I think this offense would be set. Things I worry about with this offense, and I have two big worries with this offense going into the season. I worry about the tackle play versus elite edges. As much as I think Deshaun can create his own problems at times when it comes to the amount of sacks that he takes, I also don't think the Browns have the best tackle play, especially when we're talking about going up against elite edges, right? We're going to play TJ Watt early in this year. Trey Henderson's going to move around early in this year, right? You're going to play some very good edge players. I think San Francisco's somewhere on the roster. So, well, not the roster, but the schedule. You're going to play some very high tier edge rushers. We got to be able to hold up a little bit, right? Because if we can't throw the ball. If we can't throw the ball, we got to run the ball. We got to run the ball to these fronts. It's going to be a problem. So these tackles, I got to see better play than what I saw last year from them. And then the second thing I worry about is, will this passing offense have a legitimate go-to playmaker in the most critical of situations? And what I mean by this is, hey, when Kansas City's back's against the wall, when they really need something, you know, the defense knows, Pat Mahomes knows, the linebacker knows, we know at home, everybody knows that ball is going to go to Travis Kelce 8 times out of 10 because he's the dynamic playmaker. Before it was Tyreek Hill. If you go to the Bengals, if they need a play, they're going to Jamar Chase. Same thing with Minnesota. You could go on and go on. Who's that guy going to be for the Browns? I don't know if it's Amari Cooper. I don't know if it's going to be Elijah Moore. I don't know if it's going to be David Njoku. But they're going to need a guy to be one of those, right? When it's a 4th and 3 and we just need to trust somebody to get open. Who's that guy going to be? We have no clue yet. That does concern me. Hopefully the Browns can develop somebody, or somebody can develop into that role during the season. But that's the one thing missing, right? Maybe it's Elijah Moore. He develops into that. Maybe it's not. But that's what the Browns are going to need. They're going to need a go-to guy in these tough situations, in these close games with good teams that I expect them to play. So let's go to the win total range. I think this team has a wide range. Things can go right. Things can go wrong. I think this team can win anywhere between 9 and 12 wins. 9 is the floor. I don't think the floor is very likely because I'm high on Watson. If Watson does not play well, they'll probably hit that floor. If Watson plays well, they'll probably hit the ceiling. Wherever they fall in that 9 to 12 win range is basically going to be up to Watson unless like something freaky happens, right? And that happens sometimes, right? Where like you just lose games on flukes. If that happens, then that happens. But I think Watson's going to be the difference. And I think they're probably going to hit that 12 win total in that range. But that's my thoughts. Those are my final expectations on the Cleveland Browns season after camp. Let me know what yours are down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have you better.